G'day YouTubers and welcome to episode 11 in the East of Moreton series. It also happens to be the final episode in the East of Moreton series. It kind of snuck up on me. I didn't realise I was so close to the northern end of the island because of the way I was managing the waypoints. But yeah, this is it. We should get through the remainder of the waypoints in this episode. So let's get started on them. This first mark is supposed to be a wreck. I've never seen anything there. Back when I used to fish this area, I haven't actually fished this area since I've had really good down imaging or side imaging sonar, so might have a better chance of finding something now. But in any event, there is structure on the bottom in this area, so don't discount the mark just because we don't know if the wreck is down there. Have a look around it for the structure. Structure usually means fish. I collected this next mark off the internet somewhere because whoever put it there named it Hutchinson Shoal. Of course it's nowhere near Hutchinson Shoal, or not within a few miles of it anyway. I don't know whether they named it that as a joke or whether they genuinely thought they were at Hutchinson Shoal. But it doesn't matter what it's called, there is structure in the area. You can see that on the bathymetry maps, so it's worth having a scan around when you're going past it. But more on the bathymetry maps later. They're really the key issue in this video, so we're going to cover them last. The Bulldog's another wreck site. It's a prawn trawler that sank in the mid-70s, and by all reports it's down there still intact and sitting upright. I've never fished it because I didn't know it was there when I was fishing that area, and that was back in the 90s. Didn't have the internet that we have today. Maybe I wasn't on it as much as I am today, but I didn't know about that wreck, and I don't know that I would have picked it up on my sounder to recognise it as a wreck if I didn't know it was there in the first place and I should have been looking for it. In any event, by all reports, it's a great fishing spot. So if you can find it on your sounder, there's a GPS mark to get you started. I'm not sure how accurate it is, but when I get up in that area with my current boat and my new sounding equipment, which I'm still waiting for, I'll certainly be having a look for it. And if I find it, I'll post some screenshots from the sounder. I don't have any information on this mark. The name has been given sounds like the name of a ship, and it could be a shipwreck, but I'm not sure. What I am sure of is it is just to the south of some really good looking structure in that area. So if I was looking for the mark and there was nothing actually at the mark, I'd be sounding on a line of about 15 degrees true for a few hundred metres to the north of it. You should pick up some structure there. Another mark I picked up off the internet somewhere, and judging by the name of this mark, I would say someone's caught a marlin here at some stage and decided to drop a mark on it. But regardless of why the mark's there, it is just on the eastern side of some really interesting bottom structure. So go a little bit to the west of it and scan around on a north-south line. We'll talk about that structure a little bit later in the video and you'll see what I mean. These next two marks are on Robert's Shoal. That's an area that's marked on your map. It sort of ranges from 10 to about 30 metres where it comes up off the floor. One mark's on the southwestern edge of it and the other mark's over to the east. Once you get there, have a sound around the whole area. It's a good area for fishing, and if you sound around it properly with some reasonable equipment, you shouldn't have any trouble finding some fish. At least that's the way it was back in the day when we went out there. As I say, I haven't been up in this northern area of Moreton Island for a couple of boats. It was back when I had Dancer that we used to go out there, and the modus operandi there was to go out to an area that we had a mark for. Robert Shoal was one of them, and you just sound around the area until you found something interesting on the sounder. And of course, back in those days, it was just your standard 2D sounder, nothing flash. Now this one here is simply marked as boulders, and I haven't fished this. I'm sure I haven't fished that close to the island itself. And apart from picking up some spanner crabs a bit further to the west of that point, in close to the island, I don't think I've ever been sounding around that close to the island. So this one's straight off the internet or some forum somewhere. make of it what you will. And these next 4 marks are all in the area of Brennan Shoal, so I'll just group them all together to talk about them. That is a really good area of underwater structure. It used to be a guaranteed catch back in the day. I don't know what it's like now, because I said I haven't fished this since I had wave dancer, but it used to be a great spot, although nowadays I would expect that there's a lot more fishing pressure on it because it's marked on the charts, it's a well-known fishing spot, and I would expect there's a lot of boats around it. Could be wrong. I'll be up in that area sometime in the next 12 months, and I will have a look for myself. Sort of looking forward to going back and trying some of these spots up in the northern end of Moreton Island that I used to fish, just see what they're like these days. In the event, I'll just let these marks play through, and as I keep saying, the marks are only a guide, they're a starting point. Sound around and find the fish once you get there. Okay, the areas that you see flashing up on the screen here are areas that have been classified by the Australian Hydrographic Survey as reef areas. And what I want you to notice about these is just how few fishing marks there are on these reef areas. There's a huge expanse of ocean floor there to explore and find your own marks. The reef's not going to be continuous. In my experience, it seldom is out there. It's patchy, but it'll be all around these areas that are marked, or all through these areas that are marked at least. So once you get there, you have to spend some time sounding it for yourself. And these reef areas are marked in the program that I've developed called Fish Tracks, which is what I use to display all this information on the videos. I hope to release that shortly, but I'm still waiting on a code signing certificate, and that's taken a lot longer than I anticipated. In any event, you've got the marks that I've just been talking about, and it shouldn't be too hard to find the area of reef that we've just been discussing and to sound around it and see what you can find there. And now we come to the bathymetry of the area, which I spoke about earlier. This gives you a good idea of what's down there on the bottom and what areas are worth sounding around to look for your own spots. I've left the marks that I've given you up on the screen so that you've got a starting point and you can work out where it's going to be the best direction to head to sound around. And I've used several different shading models to give you an idea of what's down there on the bottom. I find some colours work better than others for determining the bottom. No particular colour is great for any one area, so I generally like to cycle through the colours when I'm looking at an area just to see what the bottom looks like and get a better understanding of it. Knowing what you're looking for before you get out there cuts down the time you've got to spend looking for it, saves you on petrol, saves you on time, gives you more time fishing instead of searching, but unless you put those time in searching, you're wasting your time fishing. So basically what I'm saying is, if you go to a spot and you have a look around and you don't see any fish on the sounder, it's probably worth moving on. Unless you're finding something like a lot of wireweed on the bottom. Sometimes the pearlies are down amongst the wireweed and you don't see them above, although that's pretty unusual not to see some above. But if they're down in the wireweed, sometimes it's worth dropping a bait down there and just see if anything takes it. Depending on how much time you've got, of course, if you really push for time and you want to get somewhere where you know there's fish, keep searching until you find them. I have known occasions where you just drop a line down on some wireweed and you will pull up some pearlies, but in general, you should see at least a few fish hang around above the wireweed before it's worth dropping. And finally, these are the marks that we're pretty much covered in this series. I think there's a few deep drop marks out there that I haven't talked about. I'll do a series in the future on deep dropping. I haven't done any deep dropping yet. I am wanting to get out there and try some. It's just a matter of finding good weather to do it in. I've got a few marks to try. If the marks turn out to be any good, I'll put together a video on it and maybe do a series on it once I get a few marks that I know work. We'll see how that goes. But that's way off in the future. I have lots of other videos that I want to do before that. Well, that wraps up the series. Thank you for taking the time to watch it, and I hope you've got some marks out there that help you catch some fish. I will be doing another series on north of Moreton. That was another one of my favourite haunts back in the days when I was fishing in Dancer. But I really would like to delay that until I get my new sounding equipment so that I can fish some of these marks and get some really good screenshots of the area to put up with the video. At the moment, that's not looking too promising. I'm still told that I might be lucky to get the new equipment by Christmas, which is very, very disappointing. I'm actually considering importing some myself because I know it's available overseas. I'll just hold off and see how that goes because I am a little bit concerned about warranty implications of doing that. I've had a bad year for weather. I've done a lot of modifications to the boat in preparation for the new sounding equipment, which I'm just waiting on the MFD now. And I've had a fuel tank leak. I've had to pull the fuel tank out and replace that. So I haven't had a real good fishing year this year, but with luck that's going to improve from now on, depending on the vagrancies of the weather, of course. But I do hope to get some more on-water fishing videos out than I have managed so far this year. We're in the tail end of the year, so surely it's about time we had some really good weather. See how it goes. Until then, good fishing.